Hi, everyone. This is Dawn Richard, also known as The Awakening with Dawn, and this is the Wake Up to Real Love podcast, where we share stories of struggles and triumphs in love, sex, and relationships, along with expert advice to create more conscious connections. This is take 2. Welcome, Cynthia Fortlage.
Hi there.
We tried this yesterday, and for some reason, my internet cut off. And so instead of, tacking on the last 15 minutes of the conversation, I'm like, hey, it's a new day. Let's start a new conversation. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Cynthia, and then we're just going to do a deep dive because Cynthia has an amazing, amazing story. She spent 30 years as a technology executive, having experience working in the digital marketing, corporate culture, leadership, and diversity, equity, and inclusion spaces. Since 2017, she's been developing coaching for women and LGBT plus persons who are wanting to advance their professional career. She's a rock star. In 2014 through 2016, Cynthia was named to Huffington Post Top 100 Most Social CIOs, which is Chief Information Officers on Twitter. In 2017 through 19, all 3 years, she was listed as Top 100 LBGT Executives by Outstanding.org in the Financial Post. And last year, 2019, Cynthia was a finalist for CIO of the Year, which is just amazing, by Women in IT Awards. You're a freaking rock star, Cynthia. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm not sure I'd use rock star, but I appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, you've to me, reading all those accomplishments is like, wow, she's amazing. But I actually want to start off today by talking about your complete life transformation, becoming a digital nomad.
Yeah.
How in the world did you jump from that to this?
Well, I would say that whether you prefer the word brave or courageous, it's part of life.
They're both. Aren't they both kind of the same?
They are. I have specific definitions that I live by.
Tell me.
I would say that a firefighter who runs into a burning building is brave. I would say that someone in the military who takes orders that might be against their own personal values, that's brave. And I would say that even in today's world, that a police officer who puts on a uniform knowing they're going to be hated just because of the uniform, that's brave. Courage is what you have to summon in order to do something. But really, it is my roommate, we had this discussion between, being religious and, being, I'll say, a Christian background. And really, it's kind of the same thing because we're talking about our spirituality, right? So I think really in the essence, what I have matured and learned is that while I have these definitions of what it means to be brave and courageous, the simple reality is it's whatever word works for you, because they do have similar meanings. It's just I've implied different meanings based upon the way I have seen them through my life and through my lens. So it is through that journey that, took me to redefine the last, since 2016. And clearly it has roots all the way back to, at least from what I can recall, 1969. But it manifested in 2016 through even today. And so this is just a continuation of redefining my life and my life's journey and being brave or courageous and pushing myself outside my comfort zone. And so becoming a digital native, which simply means I have a storage locker and a post office box. That is all that remains of my residence in my home country of Canada. I'm traveling and living under a Canadian passport, but I don't have a home to go back to. So,
and tell me how many shoes you put in storage again?
I will leave it at simply in excess of 100. Yeah.
Because I said to you yesterday, like, I would love to do what you're doing, but I think, what would I do with all my clothes?
Yeah, clothes. There's definitely a couple of storage bins of clothes. There's
Uh-huh.
more than a couple of bins of shoes. Yes, that and boots
Uh-huh.
that went into storage. So, yeah, I mean, the reality is to be a digital nomad. Ideally, you have to learn to live your life out of 50 pounds out of a suitcase.
Wow.
And that's it for potentially a year or 2 years, or could be maybe 4 months, like whatever length of time you want to be a digital nomad. So for myself, I was contemplating a 2-year journey. So
Uh-huh.
yeah,
So you're in Medellin,
yeah, yeah. In
Colombia.
Medellin, Colombia, yes.
Uh-huh. And how did that all happen? Like, did you just wake up and say, "Oh, I think I want to do this. Bye to my old life and hello new life"?
Uh,
I hear the
no,
mariachi band.
yeah. So yeah, the traveling mariachi band has decided to stop right outside my window.
Wait, wait, wait. This is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. It's just one of the many beautiful things that you experience. Yeah.
This is
Mhm.
their authentic culture. You're immersed.
Totally. I'm not a holidayer. I'm not on vacation. I'm
Uh-huh.
living. I'm
Uh-huh.
living. So, I started a travel program with 27 others,
Uh-huh.
and I'm trying to time it in between. um, with 27 others, 60% from the US, the rest
Uh-huh.
from around the world.
Uh-huh.
And we arrived at this place where we started in Santiago, Chile, lived there for a month, then went to Lima, Peru for 5 weeks, and I fell in love living there.
Mm.
And then we
Did you
came
go
to,
to did you go to Machu Picchu?
I did not. It was
Okay.
one of the things, but I did go into the heart of the Amazon jungle,
Uh-huh.
which is a whole other
Oh,
adventure.
yeah, we can talk about that story too.
So, um, quite simply, it was we arrived in our third location for our third month, which was Medellin in Colombia.
Bravo, bravo to the band.
Oh, I'm sure they're going to kick up another song. So just,
Okay.
um, so yeah, so we got here, and then that COVID thing came about.
Uh-huh.
And I say it tongue in cheek. I mean, it's very seriously. It was not taken lightly,
Yeah.
but we were very impressed with how the Colombian government, and honestly, there became a moment of truth as they talk about, and it was either get the heck out and go back home,
Mm-hmm.
wherever home would be, which would be somewhere in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
um, or stay. And looked at my roommate at the time, and we kind of looked at each other. She's from the UK, and we said, let's stay. So we did. 3 months later, we're here.
Uh-huh.
And just today, we were talking, and definitely here into September, and contemplating going to Spain for 3 months, and
I'll
to
meet
do,
you. I'll meet you there.
okay, and in October, and actually do an immersive 4-hour-a-day Spanish program.
Oh, that would be
Um,
amazing.
and then after we finish that, then come back to Medellin to maybe live for a year, because I've actually connected here so much, and just I have so many good memories, and it's so affordable that it's a really great place to kind of restart your life and get going, assuming you know Spanish, of which case I would come back being much more fluent than when I left. So
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
yeah,
And so how does your like work day, because you're working, right?
I am absolutely living and working. No, obviously I'm running my own business, my own consultancy, so I have some freedom.
Uh-huh.
Um, so, today it was up at 7. I was working by 8, kind of had coffee in hand. And then I was going through, doing email, checking performance of my social media posts, answering any messages, and then creating more content. And today I just wrote 3 brand new articles that'll be published over the next 2 weeks. And to do that, I've got content kind of laid out, a content plan developed of other content that I'm writing. That's a part of it. I've got in the background, I pre-schedule social media posts, believe it or not, into, I think it's August.
Wow.
I,
Wow.
during this downtime with COVID, I have just had such creative energy. And so I've just been generating content after content to talk about, some fun things. I have a travel series that I post travel pictures, scenery pictures. I have a series, these boots are made for walking. I have these beautiful red hiking boots. And so every place I go, I take a picture of the boots on the ground. And so I update on my steps taken, my average per day for the month previous in the location, as well as the number of miles that I've traveled. So it's called These Boots Are Made for Walking series.
Cute.
But then I also have a learning on the road, things I've learned while traveling. I have
like what, for instance?
In South America, and I'm sure weather has a lot to do it, but they're very outdoor culture oriented compared to my experience living in Winnipeg in Canada, which goes through about 6 months of real cold winter.
Right.
Here, it's very much an outdoor culture. Walking, running, biking, hiking. It's like everybody does it. And it's part of the culture, part of the life. I was getting to the point, I was walking, almost 10,000 steps or more a day on average.
Wow.
My record's 22,000 in a single day.
Wow.
So, and that was not a hike. I was not on a long-term hike. So just, the joy of not owning a car, not having the responsibility, using public transport, and just walking about your neighborhood and getting to know it. And so I don't know if I answered your question. I was just getting so carried away between the music. And, just the whole experience of reliving, all of these images of the travel learnings. There's a whole series. I've published 2 or 3 series now on leadership, focusing on leadership terms and, what are the terms that leaders would use, and to deal with it, there's a whole series. I'm a coach as well, right? So part of it is, kind of the themes around coaching. So I have a spiritual theme that I'm running right now, which I believe a coach really needs to be aligned with the folks they're working with. And that's both, we both need to be in the same mental space, need to be coming with the right skills to help at the right time. We need to be in the same spiritual space, because a lot of coaching and a lot of self-development is about our spirituality. And so we really need to be in alignment. So, talking about that. And then I have all these articles that I'm writing. June is Pride Month. I do identify as LGBT plus in the community. So I've been writing articles to celebrate, not at the expense of the challenges of Black Lives Matter and a number of the issues that are going on today with racism and so forth. I've written specific articles addressing those, my own racism, my history of racism, and recognizing where it comes into play within, leadership, and within just, at the end of the day, we're all leaders because we all lead our own lives. Even if you're not a leader at work or in your community, you're still a leader in your own life. And
a leader of one.
Yeah, and you still have to do that. And when you think nobody's watching, and for years I thought nobody's watching, who wants to watch what was going on in my life? And yet I find so many people are watching. So as long as I continue to lead my life authentically, then everyone gets the benefit of being a part of my life. Yeah.
So how do you help your clients that you coach?
Well, my primary focus on working with my clients is in their professional lives. Now, and I say professional lives versus career coaching, because it's really whatever the person defines that fits into that.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't limit myself to say that I'm not a life coach. The coaching that I do, when you're coaching somebody professionally, you know, your professional life is about your spiritual life, and it is about your personal life, and obviously your working life, that all comes together.
Mm-hmm.
And so really when I coach professionally, it is, how do you pull all of those aspects together? Because chances are, when you're trying to advance your professional life, it probably involves elements across all three of those spheres.
Right.
I'm definitely not a health coach, and I'm not um, a you know,
Relationship.
exercise coach, and I'm not a relationship coach.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, I have experience between the genders
Mm-hmm.
to talk about, certainly with women, about understanding men and men's lives, and that's not to make excuses. It's really to help women get ahead in their professional life and in their lives, and to find that love and acceptance, a big theme of mine, when I pull it together, because everything that I do talks about love and acceptance in all of those spheres, how we pull it together, because life is holistic. And I don't think you can coach unless you're coaching holistic. Um, and we live our lives holistically. So at the end of the day, you really have to pull it all together. And that's what I try and do in working with my clients. And I just simply refer to it as helping them on their professional goals.
Mm-hmm. But really, you're an alignment coach.
Um, could be. I've
I
never
mean,
really thought of it in that way.
that, you know, after our conversations, that's the big message that I get, is
Right?
about coming into alignment with who you really are.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And, you know, because one of the first layer of acceptance without understanding, the philosophy that I teach and I use as the basis, the first step is really to deal with, they're getting a little louder, sorry. The the first stage is really preparing to accept, and like, you really have to open yourself up in all aspects, your physical self, your mental self, your spiritual self, and your emotional self, because it's a journey for all of you.
Mm-hmm.
um, but the first goal of acceptance is acceptance of self.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't do that, you can't go to the second step, which is asking those around you, your loved ones, your friends, your family, your close circle of people, those immediate circle of even acquaintances, to accept your real authentic self. And then you can't, if you can't do that, then it makes it really hard to ask society to accept you as you
Mm-hmm.
are. But once you can have all of those layers accepted, then you can ultimately accept your true destiny in life, your life goal, your life vision. And sometimes it's not your vision, it's the vision that's given to you.
Mm-hmm.
I never set off thinking, oh, acceptance without understanding. How do I get everybody to believe it? I was given a message that I need to live a life of acceptance without understanding. And I have realized through my own journey and exploring it and working on acceptance, because they're not a start, stop journey, you're done.
No, no, it's not.
It's a constant cycle of work and evolution in each of those spaces. And what I've learned is, what started as a journey for myself has become a journey for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, this, you know, that we talked about, because this is a big part of my message too, is that
Mhm.
you know, everybody needs to love and accept themselves
Yes.
right here and right now,
Hmm.
regardless of what's gone on,
Yes.
regardless of how you've been hurt, regardless of you know, the fears and the insecurities and the self doubts and the, you know,
Hmm.
questioning your worth and all of that stuff. It's like, you, I feel like our whole life,
Hmm.
we have these blocks that
Yes.
prevent us from loving and accepting ourselves. And so
Yes.
it's our responsibility and obligation to return us to this sense of balanced, you know, balanced, aligned,
Hmm.
with your own truth.
Yes.
And so I know that you struggled a lot with yourself, with your, in your own journey, about accepting yourself.
Oh
And so
yeah.
you want to talk about why this message is so important to you and for the rest of the world.
Yeah, it didn't begin, but it manifested physically in 2016,
Mm-hmm.
where I dealt with the challenge of my gender identity
Mm-hmm.
and realized that I had been living a life to everyone else's expectations to that point, being a white, successful male in business, climbing through the ranks, doing everything because that's what was expected of me. And the external validation that I was given at every level from my parents, from my spouse,
Mm-hmm.
or ex-spouse, all right, to my coworkers and my employers and just my business community. That was the person who I was, and realizing that wasn't authentically me.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't authentically me because since about 1959 or 4 years old, sorry, 69, 69, since about 4 years old, I had been struggling with elements of my identity. And at first it just manifested as cross-dressing, quote, behind, bedroom doors, very private, to really questioning my own identity. At 48 years old, I began to question, who am I? And by 50, I was starting to answer that question, and it was, I wasn't who I was me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really to be authentically myself, and that began both again, a physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional journey
Mm-hmm.
to bring all of me through. And it began with learning to accept myself and this journey that was in front of me, that I had to undertake, and do so bravely or courageously.
Both.
That
Both.
Yeah, that took me through it because of who I was and what I was taught, if you will, real beliefs, real values that I had. I didn't believe I could go off and sneak and do this privately. I did it publicly. I did it on the job as a working executive. I did it publicly. I talked a lot about it, on an old public blog that I had. I posted it on Facebook to keep everybody updated. I was doing speeches and talking in public. There was no hiding the journey that I was on.
Did you get
Uh,
a lot of backlash though? People who, just said, "Are you crazy? Why are you doing this? Where you're hurting your family?" I mean, I guess,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was disowned by my birth family through
Mm-hmm.
this. I've since had acquaintance style communications with my older and younger sister.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, both my parents passed away during this process. Um, while I can share moments that I can generally tell without crying, very emotional last moments with both my parents,
Mm-hmm.
um, that we ended the way we ended. And they're both gone. And certainly I have connected in the spiritual world with both of them. Really, we had dealt with everything that needed to be. And, it's, to come back to your message, it's about love, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while they could never understand, um, you know, um, they didn't necessarily accept, but they also didn't not love me through that. So it really made it a very difficult period. It did end up resulting in the end of, at the 32-year mark, uh, my 32-year marriage, but it was about 30 year at the 30-year mark is when I came out,
Mm-hmm.
and that really ended the relationship, as we were not able to recover. We worked at it. We were doing couples therapy. I was doing individual therapy.
Mm-hmm.
We were going, but yeah, and that's when I combined the idea of love and acceptance.
Yeah.
That's really where it came together very powerfully for me. I struggled to rebuild the relationship with my children. They're 27, 27-year-old son and a 23-year-old daughter. Uh, they struggled for, gosh, at least the first year and a bit. And it was really in the second year we reestablished a relationship that, for my daughter and I, have become much, much closer. I understand her world much more. And my son, he's still trying, but we at least have a relationship. And I feel that it's a good relationship that we have. In my friend circle, it's only but growing. There's only one couple who were actually some of our closest friends that felt that how could I hurt the family this way and cut me off from their life? And ultimately, I realized through this journey and through realizing my own true essence of who I am, what I'm about, what's my calling, what am I supposed to be doing, it wasn't my 30-year executive career. And so I left that as well. So leaving and becoming a digital nomad was a way to leave the place where I was all of those things that I wasn't, and to literally start over and redefine it as I'm traveling the world and gaining the breadth and experience of other cultures, other languages, and other societies to see how they accept me and how well that I can actually just live.
That you don't have to live up to anybody else's expectations or, you know, or responsibilities that other people try to put on you.
But I'm also not carrying the baggage of who I was.
Yeah.
They only know me as me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we talked a little bit about this before, about how, you know, you can't imagine that, you know, as a parent, you unconditionally love your children.
Yes.
Right?
That's
and
what we say.
That's what we say. That's what we say. And your kids can do some pretty terrible things. And they can be pretty hurtful to you. I mean, I can't tell you how many times my kids told me to F off, you know, and it was like, this is not okay. This is not how you treat people. But even though I would get super mad, you know, and I would react and whatever, it's like, I've always told them, you can't do anything that will make me not love you. You know, I mean, even if you were to do something horrible, unspeakable, I would feel really badly for you. I would try to have here we are again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But it's back. Good.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, so you, as a parent, I would hope that you would just love and accept your kid no matter what's going on with them. But this is a real struggle. I mean, this is why your message is so important, because you were cut off from your family, right? And you were cut off from your ex and from your kids for a little while because they weren't accepting you. They didn't understand.
Yeah. And exactly that, you know, even today, outside of my own singular existence, right, as many in the LGBT community experience families, you know, who otherwise would love them for every other reason, you know, decide to reject them simply because of this aspect of them. And really, you know, it brings out that element of what is this idea of unconditional love or true love when you talk about with a partner.
Yeah.
And really it's about love and acceptance, right? Now, as a society, just for your listeners, the idea is society needs to understand. And the way that we've been taught to gain understanding is ask the question, why? It's a question that gives us answers that helps us understand, which means we normally have a practice of, I need to understand in order to accept. And that
explain to me why 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah, right. So, you know, the inverse of that is, can't you just accept that I'm still a human being? Can't my parents just accept I was still their child? Can't my spouse still accept that I was just their spouse? But they couldn't.
Because on an emotional level, on a soul level, on a heart level, you're still the same person.
Right.
It's just externally, you look a little different.
The packaging's changed. The rest of it's just gotten better.
Yeah.
And look, let me not minimize, okay? To know somebody as your husband, your friend, your father, um, to all of a sudden become this lady,
Mm-hmm.
um,
It's
yeah, that's
it's confusing for
confusing.
everybody.
It's a shock. I have this phrase that I love to use, and it was, you know what, my spouse, she never asked for this,
Mm-hmm.
but neither did I.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that people forget. This was not something, oh boy, I can hardly wait till we hit our 30 years of marriage so I can come out. It was
Uh-huh.
like, why am I having to deal with this now? Like, why does this come up?
Uh-huh.
Because I could no longer suppress it. I had reached that point in my life, that quietness of fulfilling many aspects of, quote, a successful life, that it gave room for me to be honest with myself and to become authentic that I never had been before.
That's a really hard thing for most people to do, don't you think? To face themselves really and truly.
It is, and it's one of the reasons why, certainly within, my group as a transgender person, that we still see attempted suicide rates in the 50%. Now,
It's
I mean, let me put this
awful.
in perspective for, for your viewers. In the under 18 category, I believe the national average is a very sad number of like 4.6% attempt suicide
Mm-hmm.
in the under 18 category.
Mm-hmm.
If they are within the transgender family, it's 54%.
Wow.
They have proven through scientific studies that if you could simply just accept that child in that moment, guess what? The number reverts to the 4.6%.
That's what all of us want. Don't we all want to just be loved and accepted?
Exactly. Yes.
Like I don't want to be judged for what I do. I want to be accepted for who I am. Like I'm a sacred soul,
Right.
and so are you.
Yeah.
And so just because we have these different experiences, just because, I mean, you're not doing this to hurt anybody, and
No.
this is, when people were saying to you, why are you hurting your family?
Right.
And it's like, why I don't want to hurt my family. This is not my intention. But if I'm not living in alignment with my truth, I'm really dishonoring myself.
And that dishonor leads to suicide, attempted or otherwise.
Depression, anxiety,
Anxiety.
addiction, lots of
Yeah.
things, lots of unhealthy
Yeah.
ways of coping because you're not really being yourself.
Right. And a lot of those feelings that are put upon us, that come on, that are crushing, shame,
Shame,
right?
big one. Yeah.
Okay. It comes from society. It's not given to ourselves.
Yeah.
Society puts shame upon us. They have taught us to be ashamed of who we are.
But
But all
do you
we
think
simply
that
accept.
do you think that's because the people that are shaming other people, it's because they're not really accepting themselves either?
Quite likely, but they're also living in that I must understand in order to accept. And
Uh-huh.
again, deciding to understand is a choice. And if you choose that, if they don't look like you, pray like you, talk like you, live in your neighborhood like you,
Uh-huh.
then, well, guess what? I don't need to understand them because I just don't accept them. And
But that's this whole sense of separation, right?
right.
Like I don't
Yes.
understand you, therefore I'm maybe afraid of you, or I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to judge you, or I'm going to criticize you, or try to shame you for some reason,
Yeah.
um, because I can't face accepting you
Right.
as another human being, as a valued member of society.
Right. Because you see, they don't see the human being first. And that's what I challenge them with. Do you see me as a human being? Can you accept that I'm another human being first?
Uh-huh. And how do people respond to that?
Well, I mean, I've certainly had some success with it, but I've also found people who are struggling on the understanding side. And so, if you still need to ask why before you accept, then that means I don't know your intent when you want to ask the why question.
Mm-hmm.
Is it to be hurtful? Is it to attack? Is it to demean? Or is it just simple curiosity? Whereas if you accept, and I know that you've accepted and you ask, then I know you're simply curious. And as long as you do it in a respectful way,
Mm-hmm.
and look, I haven't met anybody who knows all the right words and knows how to say it in the right way.
Yeah.
But you sure know when somebody's asking a respectful question, even if they don't word it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea is acceptance allows us to ask the question from a place of positivity,
Mm-hmm.
versus a place of negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And because I don't know where you're coming from, I have to protect myself and assume that those that want to ask the question why first may have a malicious intent.
Mm-hmm.
And I could simply try and accept it, but I really need them for my safety to accept me, to deal with it, just as I accept that they are who they are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't question who they are. I accept who they are. I just need them to accept me, and then we can talk about our differences.
See, that's the thing. It's like we're all unique,
Yes.
and yet for some reason we all want other people to act how we act and think like we think and do how we do.
And look how we look.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like we're all the same in the sense that we all experience sadness. We all experience joy. We all cry the same tears. We have the same color blood. It's like, as part of our humanity, we're all so similar.
Yes.
And the differences, to me, actually enhance and expand your own experience of your own life rather than limit them. But when you push people away and you reject them based on whatever reason, it's like you're creating that sense of separation. You're creating that sense of small-mindedness. You're creating that sense of judgment.
Absolutely. And, the other aspect, and you kind of touched on it in a bit of your comments, but I just want to highlight it is, if I put on my management hat, right, we have this concept, we talk about groupthink. So if everybody looks like you and acts like you and behaves like you and so forth, then you have one point of view, one opinion when trying to make decisions, versus if you have a diverse group coming together and making opinions based upon diverse insights and experiences, you make better decisions. And in fact, in the business community, that can result in almost a 30% increase on the bottom line.
Wow.
30%.
Wow.
So diversity has a real business implication when we talk about decision making and performance improvement, besides making everybody much more comfortable coming to work and bringing all of their true selves.
Right.
So you're getting the best out of everybody. They're not holding back because
I need to hide and pretend.
Right.
So how can we all learn to do this?
Well, I'm continuing to blog about it and write about it. I'm talking about 4 or 5 minute reads that I'm publishing on a weekly basis to help people start to grasp this. I got entire social media campaigns that I'm publishing on Instagram and on Facebook and LinkedIn in order to raise the concepts and begin the process of having dialogue. And, certainly I'm open to working with folks to do that. And, as I continue to write and prepare and publish, one day there will be a book about this that you can go read as well. And I hope to continue to just bring this message to a larger and larger audience on a global scale, because quite honestly, that's what Spirit has asked me to do. And I know we've talked about this, but for your viewers, it's, when we talk about Spirit or God, Allah,
Creator, source.
Creator, Source, all these other wonderful names that define these entities, that means we're talking about love.
Mm-hmm.
Love has asked me to share the message of acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And I have taken that as my life's mission for the time that I have left, is to share a message of love and acceptance.
Mm-hmm. It's so needed, Cynthia.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I know you're doing so much work in the LBGT plus Q. Do people say Q too?
They do, but you do it before the plus. The plus is
okay.
the last thing.
Q plus.
Yes.
I'm not PC correct. Sorry.
You're trying.
But I'm
learning.
I'm learning, and I'm trying.
Right.
I mean, people are people.
Exactly.
People are people, and we all deserve to be loved and accepted, regardless of whether or not you understand me, regardless of whether or not you agree with me. There should be these basic human needs. I know you talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs yesterday during our conversation. It's like these basic human needs of honor and respect, just for the simple sake that I'm a human being.
I exist. Like, there's no debating that I exist. I'm a physical being. I'm here. I exist.
Right.
It's not open for debate.
So why do people debate all the other stuff?
Because they're focused on trying to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And they've either decided they don't want to understand, or they can't understand, or they don't care to understand.
Mm-hmm. And not caring to understand is what just perpetuating the sense of separation.
Yes. Yep.
I guess I have a hard time because I'm such a curious person anyways. I know that I drove my parents crazy when I was a kid. Why? And this was one of the reasons that I became a therapist, I think, because I do ask a lot of questions. And even sometimes in my own relationships, they're like, for God's sake, Dawn, can you stop asking so many questions? Like, this is just how I communicate, because I do want to understand, because for me, understanding makes me feel more connection.
Sure.
And I value my connections with people. I value feeling this sense of closeness and similarity, while also honoring our differences.
Right. But just remember that understanding comes after accepting. You don't accept and not understand.
Right.
It's just you accept without understanding.
Right.
And once you've done that, then you can have dialogue. You can ask all your whys to gain understanding.
Right.
After you've dealt with the acceptance piece.
Right.
But not before.
But that's when, because you and I talked about this, it has to start with yourself. If I can't love and accept myself, even if I don't understand myself, because understanding myself is a lifelong journey.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. And so if I love and accept myself, I have compassion for myself. I try to respect myself. I try to honor what's right for me. And I try to live my life in accordance to my own sense of values and, goodwill towards myself and towards other people.
Right.
And so I would think if you can do that for yourself, then you can also extend that for other people without the understanding. Like, I'm still trying to figure myself out, for goodness sakes.
Right.
And so you come from a place of love and compassion, and just saying, I see the sacred in you. We look through our eyes, but really we see with our heart.
Yeah.
And that's why I connected with
Yeah.
you because I
Right.
see your heart, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that you did. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I mean, thank you, because this is important. I know a lot of people, I work with a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah.
And my whole life. And I see the ways that they struggle. And I see, I see people getting cut off from their families.
Mm-hmm.
And I see them saying, you think I would choose this if I chose all the backlash and the people turning on me and the people hating me and
Mm-hmm.
doing awful things towards me or to our community?
Yeah.
Just like the Black community are
Right.
receiving all of these things because of the color of their skin. And it's like, people, we're all people.
Yes. Totally.
We're
Yes.
all people, and we're all deserving of love and honor and respect.
Exactly. Yeah.
So can we please take our blinders off
Yeah. Please.
and see people's truth, which is in their heart?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of people would say, well, what about people who hurt people? Well, people who hurt people, they're not seeing their own truth either.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to give you an analogy that I use, there are no short of groups who have a dislike of many folks, but I'll use specifically in my own case, transgender folks.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Acceptance means I accept that they have had teachings, experiences, their life journey has taught them to have that hate.
Mm-hmm.
I accept that. But the key is when what they say and what they do crosses the line of becoming their own life journey and imposes upon my life journey,
Mm-hmm.
that's where it crosses the line. And that line means I accept they have those beliefs. It doesn't mean that I accept what those beliefs mean,
Mm-hmm.
or that I definitely don't need to have that in my life.
Right.
Right? Because they have crossed the line into my personal life journey and they want to affect in some way my life journey. And they're not allowed to do that. That's my journey, just as I leave them on their own journey.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about telling people what to think, but it is about how you impact another's life journey.
And that's a big thing for me. Like, when I show up, I
Mm-hmm.
want to say, am I contributing positively to this relationship, this connection, this circumstance? Or
Right.
am I in some way harming it, or, creating some sense of hurt or disconnection? And it's really like, it's really facing yourself every single day. How are my words, what energy are my words carrying? What energy is my presence showing? Am I coming to this place of, because you talked about positivity, and it's not this
Mm-hmm.
like Pollyanna, there's nothing wrong,
Mm-mm.
everything's great. It's
Nope.
like, no, we all struggle.
Absolutely.
We all
Every day.
struggle.
Yep.
And I choose to focus on the love and the
Yes.
joy and the connection and the similarities,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
the things that are really endearing about us, a soul.
Yes. When we look at it in the perspective of our life journey, I have another analogy that I use,
Uh-huh.
and it's like a clock. Your life is like a clock. When you look at a clock, there was time before it. There's history.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go back in the history, but you know that it existed. But the clock only moves forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the clock in our life, we just need to move forward.
Mm-hmm. And so how, because I know this was a struggle with your family, how have
Yeah.
your kids moved forward with you?
Um, we still struggle about what to call me, so they just simply call me Cynthia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we revisit it about once a year. It's still a very hard conversation for all of us to have because
Mm-hmm.
it's trying to be respectful of everyone, including my ex, their mother.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that. But beyond that, all I simply want is them in my life. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's not about judging the words they say, the behaviors they do, the accomplishments they make, the grades they get, the pay raise they accomplish, many things that I was judged on
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for external validation. It's just
Right.
simply, you're my kids and you seem to be great people. And I just love having you in my life. And that's simply the depth of my parental judgment is, you're good people, you're my blood,
Mm-hmm.
and that's simply all I use as a criteria to have them in my life. And so I think I've actually become a better parent by
Mm-hmm.
learning to live with acceptance without understanding. As I've already said, reestablishing a relationship. I mean, I would occasionally connect with my kids just as kids grow up and, they're living on their own, whether through school or post school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now through this, because I'm still in somewhat of a lockdown here, I still have regularly 2 video chats with my kids twice a week.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's great. So we connect, we catch up, we share what's going on, we share the highs, the lows,
Uh-huh.
what things are challenging. And I share my challenges. Like, I don't judge and go, oh, I'm a parent, I'm not. No, it's like, no, you're adults. I'm going to tell you the adult things I'm challenged with. And
Yeah.
we talk about them, and I want them to understand like that acceptance is not an easy process. Like, it's something you need to work at. And when you do it, then they can go do the work for themselves and learn to accept themselves and, be happy where they are and who they are in life without looking at all of the other validation of the house, the car, the cottage, the winter
All the
vacation.
external factors. Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you get those, great, but don't judge your life on those. I did, and it doesn't buy happiness.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you,
Yeah.
how can you and how do you help people come to this place of acceptance without understanding? Because you can say, well, you need to accept yourself, and people will go, I don't even know how.
Right. And so with that, I've been very fortunate through my life to be taught many, many skills. And I bring those skills to the table in terms of dealing with it. For instance, Dawn, when you think about your ability to connect with people, is that a conscious or an unconscious skill?
It depends on the situation.
Right. But the fact that you have that skill, did you gain it consciously?
Oh, no.
Okay, so you had it unconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, the difference in teaching somebody, what that means is, if something is unconscious and you have it as an unconscious skill, when the world changes, as we've experienced drastic change in the last 14 weeks,
Yeah.
you don't know how to adapt. You struggle.
Right.
But if you gain those skills consciously, then you know how to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you need to take what is unconscious and make it conscious. And you do that through inventory of recognizing the skills, recognizing, is this an unconscious skill or a conscious skill? And sometimes just doing it makes those things conscious. But, how did I learn to think critically? I learned it originally unconsciously. It was just something that was very natural for me.
Mm-hmm.
But learning to
Okay, go ahead. Conscious and unconscious skills.
Right. So again, the idea is that if a skill is unconscious, when things change as they have in the last 14 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
you struggle to adapt. because you don't know how you learned that skill in the first place. So you don't know how to adapt the skill.
Right.
Change. If it's conscious, you can adapt it. And through that, there are many tools that I have at my disposal that I've been taught through the many years, 30 years, in various leadership roles, up through executive and board roles, that I can bring to someone else's toolbox and equip them on how to go through these things, take personal inventories, assess skills, figure out, what kind of leader, even a leader in their own life, are they? And how to kind of position that in order to, again, advance their professional career. And that's, again, looking at all four modalities, right? Of their physical self, their emotional self, their mental self, and their spiritual self.
So this is really about waking up, right? Like becoming conscious of all these different aspects of ourselves and what things are limiting and blocking us and what things are propelling us in a forward direction.
Absolutely. I like to just use, it's about becoming authentic. And authentic doesn't mean that you're LGBT plus, okay? It just, authentic means it's the real you. No more hiding, no more fake layers. It's you. And that's not to say that you have to expose all of you to the world as I did. But you can simply just be you and lead a happier, more fulfilling life, full of love with yourself.
Don't you feel like that gives you such a sense of freedom and liberation?
Yeah, to not hold secrets and not be afraid to talk about anything. I can't even put into words, but it's just like, I think most people from it, the problem with telling a lie is you have to remember what lie you told, and then, we kind of build these shaky pyramids based upon these, very
stories.
Fake stories and fake foundations, right? I don't have that worry anymore. There's just me, and the foundation's solid. And I'm building a single pyramid on top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, as represented as a pyramid. And I'm simply rebuilding my life through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to deal with it. And you start by working through level one, which is safety and existence, a roof over your head, food in your belly, right? And then you move to, you touched on it, right? That reaffirmation of ourselves as a human being worthy of those things to keep us surviving. And then we move into human connections. And the human connections evolve into really the external element that's not driving us, but it becomes the recognition of our knowledge, skills, and abilities in terms of our mastery of our life, of our career, of our professional life, as I defined it. Until ultimately we continue to go after the last piece of, self-actualization, as Maslow described it, which again, I think is more aspirational than it is actually a state that we achieve, which is why as human beings, we're constantly growing and learning. It's a continuous cycle. It's not an end.
Right. Yeah.
So we aspire to that pinnacle.
Yeah. I always say it's a journey, not a destination.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, you have had an incredible journey, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Really.
It continues.
Yeah, it continues.
Yeah.
So the last question that I ask my guests is, how do you define real love?
For real love, for me, I define that as love and acceptance. So the acceptance piece we've talked about at length. The love is, I was very much in a codependent relationship, meaning we could not exist without each other. But I really believe that love, self-love, is that I become a strong, independent person that doesn't need another person. But when I find that partner that I want to be with it, that I'm still that strong, independent person with them, that's love. And the fact that they accept me, knowing as transparent as I am, that have a history like the clock, right? But they're prepared to move forward with who I am, so that we love and accept each other, and that meets the definition of what's true love.
Yeah. Well, you're a beautiful, beautiful soul.
Thank you. So are you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Cynthia, how can people get in touch with you to work with you, find out more about your articles and blogs and, you know, your speaking engagements, because I know you do a lot of those things.
Right. Thank you for asking. I'm all over social media on pretty much all major platforms: Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and on my own website at www.cynthiafortlage.com.
Okay.
And they can connect to all of those resources from there, including a contact me page if they wish to reach out and end up having a free 30-minute consultation to talk about what does moving forward in their professional life look like in context of their journey that I could help them with.
Well, you're going to be helping a lot of people. I just have this really big feeling about you.
Well, I know that you already are, and I look forward to all the ways that we can continue to help people in both of our journeys in life.
Yeah. So listeners, I'm sure you have gotten so much value from this conversation, because we touched on so many beautiful, beautiful insights and inspirations. And so please subscribe to the Wake Up to Real Love podcast. Tell all your friends. Give us some feedback. You know, if you have any suggestions or recommendations of, you know, different topics that you want to hear more about. But all of this comes back to my favorite mantra that I say at the end of every podcast is: the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. And, you know, you are a testimony and a testament to this, that you have worked so hard on coming to this place of love and acceptance for yourself, that you so generously offer it to everybody that you come in contact with. So thank you, Cynthia, for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yep. All right. So every day, listeners, wake up to more and more real love. Take care. We'll see you next time. Bye.